Welcome to the Bull Moose Network. I'm your host, Brian Charles Vish, and today we begin with a labor story that shook one of the world's most powerful corporations. The strike against Amazon was the largest in the company's history, and it wasn't just about wages. It was a declaration of war against a system treating workers like disposable cogs in a profit machine. Led by the Teamsters, over 10,000 workers stood in freezing conditions, facing corporate intimidation to demand dignity and fair pay. Their message was clear. The era of silent servitude under billionaires is over. The strike strategically targeted Amazon's logistical hubs in Detroit, New York, Atlanta, and Southern California at the height of the holiday season, crippling operations. Amazon, however, downplayed the action, claiming that only a fraction of its workforce was involved and dismissing the Teamsters as outsiders. But the disruption was undeniable, exposing cracks in Amazon's anti-union stance. Central to the fight was Amazon's reliance on subcontracted delivery drivers, an arrangement allowing the corporation to deny accountability for wages, benefits, and workplace conditions. The National Labor Relations Board ruled Amazon a joint employer, adding legal weight to the union demands. Yet the company resisted, doubling down on union-busting tactics. This strike echoes a pivotal moment in labor history, like the 1997 UPS strike and the Ford Hunger March of 1932, where organized resistance reshaped industries. Amazon workers are drawing from this legacy to redefine solidarity in the 21st century, refusing to accept exploitation as the cost of progress. Amazon's strategy to sidestep accountability through subcontracting and AI-driven productivity monitoring represents a broader model in tech-driven workplaces. This movement isn't just about strikes. It's a challenge to the architecture of corporate exploitation. The success or failure of this strike will ripple across the industry, either empowering workers or emboldening corporate resistance. Likely both. As Teamster President Sean O'Brien said, if your package is delayed during the holidays, you can blame Amazon's insatiable greed. The fight isn't over. The strike wasn't a single battle. It was the first salvo in a larger war for accountability and justice. Workers have drawn the line. The question is, will we stand with them or remain complicit in feeding the machine? I know where I'll be. Our next story takes us to the New York City subway, where a horrifying tragedy unfolded. A tragedy not only of a woman's death, but of a society's failure to act. On December 22nd, a woman was set on fire inside a train at the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue station. She burned alive as passengers stood by doing nothing. The accused 33-year-old now faces charges of first-degree murder and arson. But this isn't just about one man's horrific cruelty. It's about the collective cowardice of bystanders who chose inaction over intervention and a system that relies on police, who have no constitutional obligation to protect us. This tragedy is an indictment both of individual apathy and systemic failure. The horrifying truth is that this isn't an anomaly. 3 landmark cases expose the fallacy of believing police are here to ensure safety. Warren versus the District of Columbia, 1981. Police failed to respond to repeated 911 calls, leaving 3 women to endure hours of assault. The court ruled the officers owed no specific duty to protect them. Deschenets versus Winnebago County, 1989. Social services failed to protect a child from known abuse. The court ruled the state had no obligation to intervene. Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, 2005. A mother begged police to enforce a restraining order They didn't, and her children were killed. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled she had no constitutional right of enforcement of said restraining order. These rulings expose the truth. Police are not obligated to act, even when lives hang in the balance. Their role is reactive, responding to crimes after the fact, not preventing them. The woman who burned alive on the F train is a cruel testament to these failures. While bystanders can claim fear or shock, what excuse do the police have? Police presence focuses on fare evasion and order, not safety. And when the system itself absolves officers of responsibility, public trust becomes another casualty. Critics have long condemned the Metropolitan Transportation Authority's neglect of safety. A lack of basic measures like fire extinguishers reflects a system that prioritizes efficiency and profits over human life. The subway is not a sanctuary. It's a stage for neglect, violence, and systemic failures. Compounding this crisis is the acquittal of Daniel Penny, a former Marine who fatally choked Jordan Neely, a homeless man in crisis. Penny is celebrated for taking a life, but folks like Luigi Mangione are condemned by the same media. If justice bends to power and prejudice, then let's not pretend it's justice at all. It's just an illusion of control. His exoneration emboldens a dangerous precedent. Selective vigilantism that risks creating chaos rather than fostering collective safety. The New York City subway system sacrifices human lives for order and profit, reinforcing a broken promise of safety. Policing priorities broadly protect property over people, arriving only after the damage is done. The system isn't designed to protect, it's designed to control. The alternative isn't more officers or bigger budgets. It's dismantling the status quo. Community safety initiatives, mental health services, housing programs, these address the root causes of violence. Imagine a world where safety means dignity for all, not just the illusion of protection. If this system values profits over people, then it's clear. It doesn't deserve to exist. It's time to demand something better. If this is the best we can do, then perhaps we should let it collapse under its own rot, so we can build something worthy of the people. Now let's turn to news that is gripping the left and shaking the progressive movement to its core. I'm only doing one segment covering this. I don't like gossiping. It distracts from what is important. But that is also why I prepared this segment. It must be addressed. For 2 decades, I've watched the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian weren't just voices. They were guides who introduced me to politics that mattered. They made it tangible, serious, and real. For that, I am grateful. But gratitude does not blind me. Let's discuss the union fight in 2020. TYT resisted its staff's effort to organize, claiming they couldn't afford it. That excuse is the anthem of every boss who has ever prioritized profits over people. Sure, Cenk signed the union contract in the end, but so did Henry Ford, and not out of altruism. Signing after resistance doesn't erase the damage done. Cenk, you built a platform fighting for workers. But when it came to your own house, you faltered. Progressives demand better. Then there's your recent attempts to court MAGA voters. You've argued for common ground on economic issues, but this strategy ignores a fundamental truth. MAGA isn't just a voting bloc. It's a movement rooted in opposing everything progressivism stands for. Trying to align with them isn't bridging a gap, it's walking into a trap. History has shown us appeasing those who see us as an enemy doesn't earn respect. It reveals weakness. This isn't building solidarity. It's risking the trust of progressives who have stood with you. TYT was never about compromise with reactionary politics. It was about forging ahead with principles intact. Anna, your trajectory is just as baffling. Your criticisms of the Democratic Party are valid, but where are they leading? Voice those concerns in an uncompromising fashion, but make no mistake, pushing narratives that sound pulled from centrist or conservative playbooks, like critiques of crime policies, erodes your credibility. Disagreeing with your party is one thing, but when the message starts to blur into opposition rhetoric, your purpose becomes unclear. Then there are the public outbursts from both of you. Tantrums of toddlers that serve as nothing other than a distraction. Instead of rallying progressives, these moments pull focus away from the issues that matter. And what's with your demonization of migrants in your Aurora story? I lived in Denver. I know the reality. You wanted to point fingers at migrants while ignoring the systemic issues driving violence. That's not progressive journalism. It's scapegoating. If you cared to dig deeper, you'd find answers, not talking points. I'll give you a lead. For a building that has homegrown, red-blooded American gang members causing issues. Welton Park Apartments, managed by Graystar, a name that should sound familiar to you, Anna, as you recently did a story on them. For years, I stood by the Young Turks because you stood for something greater than yourselves. You weren't perfect, but you were principled. You fought for workers, the marginalized, and had a vision of justice that went beyond sound bites. But now I see a platform struggling under the weight of contradictions. This isn't about betrayal. It's about accountability. It's about ensuring that the movement TYT once championed remains strong, uncorrupted by missteps or compromises. The mission comes first. Cenk, Anna, you have lost your way. But the fight for progress doesn't have to lose with you. I am holding on to what you once stood for. Do not mistake the patience of those who believe in you for weakness, or you will find that trust, once broken, is not easily restored. Thank you for joining me at the Bull Moose Network. Your time is valuable, and I truly appreciate you spending some of it here. If you found value in what we're doing, consider hitting like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I know it's not nothing. It costs time, and I'm grateful for yours. That small effort helps a new channel like this grow and keep delivering content that matters. Eyes open, voices loud.